name, which we could go and find. Yeah, see, now it says on air up here. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You can zoom it in. It's not a big deal.
I'm just glad you didn't zoom in on my nose a minute ago.
All right. So anyway, that's how I run the stream. Not too terribly expensive, right? The camcorder is the most expensive piece, and Tony was asking earlier, you know, what kind of camcorder would I recommend? Really, any camcorder off the shelf from a major manufacturer is going to be plenty good. This is a Panasonic. You can get a 4K, which is the quality, as good a quality as you're going to find in a camcorder, for certainly under $1,000, probably in a $600 to $800 range. You can find them a lot cheaper, but you're going to be buying brands that are a little more generic. And I've had mixed results with some of the less expensive camera brands. Some are great, some are not so good. So the Rode microphone's about, I don't know, between $80 and $100, I think, and then this box is like $115 or $150 or something like that. So for under $1,000, you can buy a very nice streaming setup if you want to stream events, right? If you're streaming because of simulcast auctions, that's a different deal, and you need to stream those through your bidding provider, right? Through your proxy bid or your bid spotter or whatever. They're going to have solutions for streaming that, because you cannot stream through YouTube and Facebook and expect low latency. Latency is the delay, right? So you get good quality, get really good quality through YouTube and Facebook, but it might be as much as 60 or 90 seconds behind what's actually happening, which we obviously know is, yeah, well, you can see the delay there, right? So it's a few seconds behind, which doesn't work for a live auction, right? And that's a small delay. I've seen it, like I said, I've seen it as much as a minute or two behind.
I'll ask a really silly question here.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that a lot of times people out in the viewer field don't necessarily want to be watching us, the auctioneer.
Mm-hmm.
They want to sometimes see what we're selling.
Mm-hmm.
So having that Rode microphone being a directional mount on your camera,
Mm-hmm.
do they have a mount that you can just put that facing the auctioneer
Turn it around.
and then turn the camera around to see the crowd or to see the items?
Yeah.
Understand my point?
So another option would be, and this is probably, so if I was streaming the auction, streaming an auction for production reasons is different from streaming a contest for entertainment reasons, right? I like this mic for contests because while it's reduced, you do get some of that side noise, and having the crowd between contestants is pretty valuable, right? As far as making the room feel alive. The other option, and this has the place for it, where you can plug in just a microphone or a line. And so if I was streaming my auction, what I would do is have the camera on whatever I wanted it to be on, and I would take a cord out of the speaker or sound system and run it right in, so that everybody online was hearing just the auctioneer, and there wasn't any crowd noise or anything like that. That would be a higher quality experience. And you could put the camera wherever you wanted it. You wouldn't have to worry about an ambient mic in the room. Okay, so I just wanted to get that on and turned on so we'd be streaming, and of course we could, don't need to worry about it, but you can record as well.
Where are you actually streaming right now?
Right now it's on YouTube, and if you look for Auctioneer Tech, there should be, yeah, that's my personal account, but if you search for Auctioneer Tech, all one word,
Okay.
you should be able to find it.
So if you're streaming this on YouTube, is it also recording to YouTube, or is it going to be?
By default, those recordings are there unless you go in and tell them to go away. So yeah, it records there as well. But
same quality, or is there advantages to you recording on your?
there's absolutely, that's a great question, and yes, you always want to record locally because that's going to be the high quality.
Is there?
They're getting a compressed stream. Oh, and that's another great feature. Do you see right here? It says 1.9 megabits at 720p 30. If you have a great internet connection, you could ramp this up and increase the quality of the stream to be 1080 if you want, which is just the the number of lines, how crisp that picture is. You can ramp up the quality a lot. Most of the time, like when I'm using my Verizon hotspot on my phone to do this, I keep it under 2 megabits, but you can run it all the way up to, if you've got a 100 megabit connection, you can ramp it up to 20 and have an amazingly high quality video. But YouTube is only getting what I'm sending, and right now it's pretty compressed. So that's why I do like to record using the camera itself. And that'll be what, so when I record and stream the contests, we stream the contest, but then I always go home and I make a nice, fade ins and titles and high quality, and that's what we upload to be there in perpetuity on YouTube for the state associations that I work with. So. All right, just let that run. And we'll switch over. Any questions on that right now? We've got some slides that'll kind of go back over a lot of this that we just talked about, but that's the streaming. So video requires a webcam or a video interface, right? This little box is the video interface. Webcam's low quality and can't zoom. GoPros have lens distortion, and the interface will connect the camcorder to the computer. That's what we just talked about. And we have the option of the direct audio connection, which we talked about. And there's a picture of the box, ELGATO. You can kind of read it on there, but I need to put that in the actual text on the presentation. So, cameras. What's the saying with cameras? The best camera is the one that you have, right? A lot of us will find ourselves in a bind taking pictures with a cell phone. And that's not the worst thing ever, now that cell phone pictures are a lot better than they used to be. I am still a big fan of using a nice DSLR camera, right? Digital single lens reflex, a nice camera for, if you're taking pictures of good assets, and there's something to be said for a nice camera. Pictures that these take are still, that one's probably 6 years old, and it still takes better pictures than my phone does, right? It's just the nature of the technology. With the exception of video. As I mentioned, you've got a camcorder that's $600-800 to get a decent 4K camcorder. And the phone, if you have a phone that's been manufactured in the last 2 years or 3 years, probably can do 4K or UHD, call it different things, but really, really high quality video. And so it's kind of silly sometimes, but I'll take pictures with this, and then when it's time for the video, pull out the phone, because the capture quality of the phone is a lot better than the video capture on things like that. Always capture highest quality. When you're taking pictures of something, it's very inconvenient to have to go retake pictures at higher quality. So we always ramp it up to make sure it's as high as it can be. You can always reduce the quality, but you can never increase the quality when you're sitting at your computer, right? We've all been in the situation where we want to use a picture as a marketing picture and send it to the printer, and they say this is not good enough, you're going to have to send us a better image. So we always want to start with the highest quality we can.
We're talking a lot about high quality pictures, but then if we load our websites with the highest quality pictures, then we slow down the load.
Great point. So what do we do?
Resize them before you put them on your website.
Reduce them?
Right, resize. Resize, reduce. So as an example workflow, I'm a big fan of keeping a copy of the original image, right? So when our guys get done taking a whole bunch of pictures, we bring it in and we take all the pictures on the storage card and we move it to the computer. I always just make a copy of all of those and just save them in the originals folder. That way, if I accidentally delete something later, if I resize it too small, I've always got the original image to go back to. It's a fail-safe, right? But then we take those, we rename them, do whatever we need to do with them, and we talked in the last presentation about resizing and cropping and doing all of that. We're still left with an image that is big, and that's not the image we want to use on our website. And so there are tools that will batch process and resize all of those before getting pushed up to our website. Some of that's nowadays done in the inventory management software, like a WaveBid or an AuctionFlex, right? Or some of the mobile apps these days are doing most of that stuff behind the scenes in the background. But I come from the days where we had to do it all by hand, and so that was our process. But I sure like keeping those originals as a fail-safe. And we actually upload, I think our website, we send 3 different copies of each image up, a little thumbnail, the standard image, and then a super high resolution image that people can get to if they want to. You know, it's like zoom in on this image or whatever, and it just loads the big image in its own thing. So they can get to it if they want to, but it's not slowing anything down. All right, so we did the streaming. Now let's talk about audio. So we're going to talk about different types of speakers. I've got some microphones here. We'll talk about different types of mics. We'll talk a little bit about cables. I'll run you through some pictures and do a little show and tell, but the fun part of the take home, I think, is going to be when we get to talking about the effects in some of the newer mixers that are, they've always been available, but they're so much easier and cheaper to use now. And then I'll do some demonstrations of what some of those effects are. So we'll start with speakers. There are a couple of different types of speakers, and I don't know why this is not going line by line, but just don't read ahead, okay? So a passive speaker has to be powered by a separate amp. Your powered speakers have the amplifiers built into them. Your portable speaker has an amplifier and a battery, and then there's a monitor. And let's take a look at these. So here's an example of a passive speaker, right? It's just a box, and then on the back all we have is cable inputs, right? So this requires power and signal coming from a separate place. We plug it into the back of the speaker. Powered speaker, that's an example of what this is over here. So it requires power, so we've got it plugged into the wall, as well as a separate place to go signal. So there's the power, it's got the amplifier built into it, and then there's a place to plug in a signal cable. These are becoming incredibly inexpensive these days, and very, very good quality output. This is what a lot of us are probably more familiar with than anything else, right? These are the speakers from like the speakers that the vendors sell at our conferences, right? And these are the portable speakers that have the power source, as well as the amp, and a rudimentary mixer built into them. It's an all-in-one, right? This company went out of business. I'm not entirely sure, but it was the best one that I ever saw, this Paso.
Did they?
Paso.
I hope they're still in business, but the card the guy gave me the one time I saw him, and I went and it was domain for sale, whatever. But I mean, you can see the thing. It's got 4 different wireless receivers. It's got a CD player built in. It's a couple of line ins and a whole bunch of knobs and dials and gizmo widgets. And not cheap though, right? You can spend $1,000 or $2,000 or more on one of these things, and I'm not excited about spending that much money on a sound system. Monitors. These are one place where I think, as auctioneers, we are underutilizing this kind of speaker, right? Not the greatest option for those, if you're walking down a farm sale in a line of equipment, it's not going to be a great thing. But if you have the luxury of selling to a seated crowd, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a speaker facing you. At our auctions, the rule was the auctioneer never got to control the volume. Why? Because the speakers, if properly configured, are going to be facing the crowd, not the auctioneer. The auctioneer wants to hear himself or herself and wants to crank it up, which makes the people in the front want to leave, right? So how do we make the auctioneer hear him or herself while still having a pleasant volume everywhere else? It's with a monitor, right? You've seen them at concerts, rock shows, or whatever. You see those, we call them floor wedges, right? Here's a picture of a floor wedge on a stage coming back at the performer or the auctioneer. Galaxy Audio makes this little portable hotspot, and it's about the size of this little sandwich box here. And it can fit on a stand, just on a little mic stand. You just set it right here in front of the auctioneer, and you can control the volume all the auctioneer wants without impacting the sound field in front. So very, very underutilized and a valuable part of sound configuration for auctioneers. Now, questions on speakers?
Gone to using an in-ear.
Yeah, okay, great point. I'm a huge lover of in-ear. So in-ear microphones, and you see these in the more professional bands and musicians will have a belt pack, right, and run a wire up, and it's just an in-ear monitor. Great. I would go a little nuts because I want to hear the room. When I play, I use in-ears and have for 15 years now. I love them. I always leave one side out. And it's a little disorienting when you first start out using them, but I just go crazy if I've got both ears in, because they do a great job isolating sound. And so when you've got them in, you can hear yourself great, but you cannot hear a thing from the outside world. And so even when I'm playing music, I have one in and one out so I can hear the room. If I was selling at an auction, I would prefer this because I would want complete awareness of my surroundings and sounds, and I want to hear everything. So, I mean, whatever your preference is. Right, the in-ear is a lot better to control the sound because you don't have that separate sound source coming back at the auctioneer, right?
It'll save you It'll save your voice.
Oh, right, yeah.
It'll save you for the
Absolutely.
next day. Because what we do, everybody in this room is the same way. You will project what it takes to hear yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You will wear yourself out because you can't hear yourself. Everybody else can.
Absolutely.
You can.
And if you got a crowded room, or if the audience noise gets louder, you know, depending on the situation, you find yourself yelling, you should never have to yell when you're calling bids. Let the microphone do the work. Right? That's why you spend the money on the speakers and the microphones, so they can work for you. You shouldn't have to yell. Let's talk about mics. A couple of different types of microphones, dynamic and condenser. Your dynamic mics are probably more common, especially in this industry. They are not quite as sensitive most of the time as a condenser mic. Right? This is an example of a dynamic microphone. All these are. Right? This is a pretty standard mic in music, and I see them a lot in the auction business as well. It's a Shure SM58, pretty standard vocal mic. This is a SM57, and it's more used for instruments and things like that. And this is a beta. Shure's beta series are generally a lot better quality, but it's still the same fundamental technology for the most part as the mics. The only reason I bring several is just to show you that there are different mics for different applications. Right? A good instrument mic may not be a good vocal mic. Right? Because when we're trying to represent the voice, we want to represent a different set of frequencies than we might want if we were miking a snare drum or a kick drum or a cymbal. Right? Condenser mics are generally more expensive because there's more electronics in them. They require a power source to keep that condenser sensor operating. Right? And so either we send power back along the mic cable, which is called phantom power, or some of the microphones will have a battery inside of them. And they're a lot more common in studio or when you talk about podcasting. This is a condenser microphone, the Shure Beta 87C. And it does not work unless you feed it power through the cable. And so if you, in that example of that high school gym and you can't figure out why the mic's not working, and you see a switch for phantom power is off, and you can switch it on, and maybe the microphone start working if it's a condenser mic. Here's some examples. That first one is the Heil PR40. You find it very commonly used in podcasts these days. It's a very large dynamic microphone, large diaphragm dynamic mic. And that's what I use when I do all our commercials and voiceover work that I do. That middle one's a good instrument mic. I showed you an example of it, and then the vocal mic on the right, all dynamic microphones. Examples of condenser microphones. This one on the left is made by a company called Blue. You hear it commonly referred to in podcasts as Blue. They call it the Yeti mic. They were just purchased by a company called Logitech, and so it will be the Logitech Blue mic. That one in the middle is one I showed you, and here's a $3,000 mic that I get to sing in whenever I go to the studio in Wellington, Kansas, and do the recording, right? So you can spend tons and tons and tons of money on microphones of varying qualities and purposes. Different configurations, right? Handheld or your headset, right? We're all familiar with the headsets. You see these ear sets as well. So the headset mic, I always think of something that comes up and is in front of your mic, or in front of your mouth when you're speaking, right? The ear set comes down kind of along the side of the cheek. We see those a lot in presentations. I've not seen it used a lot in actual auctions, right? Tony, did I see a picture of you with an ear set on one time? Do you have one of those that just comes kind of partially down?
It kind of goes to here.
Do you like it for auctions, or is it more for just presentation?
If the sound system is set right, it's
It
great.
works for auctions. I've got one.
But again,
You've got one too.
I'm doing benefit, not personal profit.
Right. Right. I could see that maybe posing a problem in a noisy, on-the-ground environment and personal property sometimes, depending on how things are set up. So, but that one thing we can all agree on, right? The lavalier mics. I have one of these somewhere, but the clip-on mics, right? Poor choice for an auction. Great choice for something like this. Bad choice for an auction, right? Because we want to decrease that distance between the mouth and the recording apparatus to decrease the outside noise to a point. We don't want that distance to be 0. And this is why. This is a handle. This is not a handle. I see some guys who come up, blah, 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 and it sounds like trash coming out of the speaker. But Aaron, at the car auctions, that's the only way we can hear ourselves. I get that. I get that that's a problem and it needs to be fixed. It doesn't make it right. It makes it something that you have to do. Unless that's your scenario, use the handle. Any questions on that? I would pay a lot of
Get a
money.
good monitor.
What's that?
Or get a good monitor.
Get a good monitor. I'd pay a lot of money if all our auctioneer contests could have a head like that on the microphone. It would sound a lot better. Close, but not too close. All right. Talk a little bit about cables. Different levels, and that's the most important thing. It's not really about what kind of cable it is, it's about the fact that there can be several different levels, and if you plug the wrong thing into the wrong thing, you can actually damage some stuff, right? And so the most sensitive level is a microphone level. If I measure the level coming out of this, if I put a voltmeter on here, there's not very much power going through that, right? The dynamic microphone is really just a speaker that's plugged into a wire. And it's the actual, the vibrations of the sound that's picking up and translating that into electricity. And that's not a very powerful signal, right? So that's why that's the most sensitive or the quietest level, lowest level of power. All right. The next level is an instrument level. Plugging in guitars and things like that, not really relevant to us, but that's a little more powerful than a microphone. Here's where you can get into some trouble. There's a line level, which is going to be the output of a computer or your phone or a CD player, right? There's a battery that's pushing power out. That's a lot stronger than your microphone level, right? But it's not going to power. I'm not going to go all the way back, but you remember that passive speaker, that speaker that just had the input, right? You can crank your phone up as loud as it's going to be, as loud as you possibly can, and you're probably going to be able to barely hear it, if at all, right? It's not powerful enough to power a big speaker, but it's a lot more powerful than your microphone. Where that's important is when we're talking about gain structure, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. All right, so examples. Mixers, CD players, that kind of stuff. And then your last level is your speaker level. And this is after an amplifier as it's going into the speaker. And here's where you can hurt some things, is if you take that speaker level output and you plug it in to an instrument input or something like that on your mixer, you can start to fry some stuff. So you just want to be cognizant that there are different levels of signal. Different cable types. I'm not going to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on this, right? You've got your straight jacks. We've all seen them in different ways and places. The XLR is the one that's most common for microphones, right? The 3-pin. And that's generally a line level or an instrument level signal. Your 1/4-inch cables are either instruments or powered. These over here on the right, not quite as common. I think they're called Nutric. Or Speak-On, that's right. But those are just power. And they do that because they're sending so much power through there, they don't want you to mistake it with something else and plug it into the wrong place. Remember the old record players and stuff used to have those RCA plugs on them. Not going to spend too much time on that. All right, here's the fun stuff. Different mixers, right? You got the standalone or console mixers. And those take instrument or line level signal and output a line level signal to an amp of some kind that is separate. Your powered mixers take your instrument or line level in the front and they output a powered send so that you can power your speakers from that powered mixer. Some of the mixers you can find in your portable speakers have mixers built into them, right? This has a rudimentary mixer on the back of it, right? A couple of different volumes. But it means that I can take this speaker and a corded mic, plug it in somewhere and do an auction if I wanted to, right? Because I've got all I need with the volume control there. I'm not going to have all the bells and whistles that we're going to talk about in a second, but it would work. And then in the last 10 years or so, they've started to release these digital mixers, and that's what we're going to show you here in a minute. So here's where we're going to talk about effects. And I think that these effects that we're going to talk about are not commonly known or not commonly utilized at auctions. And I think that the benefit that they can bring us is overwhelming. So, gain and volume. Sometimes you'll see both knobs on a mixture of some kind. In a nutshell, the way I think of it is that your gain is the input level and your volume is the output level. That's actually a bad way to think about it. I like gain to be maybe a coarse adjustment to, and this is dumbing it down pretty substantially, but it's tough to get my head around too sometimes. But your main adjustment, get everything roughly the same, use the, and then once everything is similar, then that's where you start to use the actual level to get everything dialed in, like a coarse and a fine adjustment. But what we want to do, and the reason this is important, is it can mess up your signal in either direction. If it is too loud, you get clipping. You guys know what clipping is? Right? It's distortion. When you're talking in and it sounds garbled or muffled, you know, it's the sound wave that hits the limit, and it squares off that wave, and it sounds like, you know, when you're trying to talk. And the other, if it's too low, you get white noise. Where if the signal isn't loud enough and you crank it up, you hear this, that white noise in the speaker, and that means that your signal is too low, so you want to bring the gain up. But if we can eliminate the clipping and the white noise, and then just control our volume with our volume knob. So, we're going to talk first about equalization. And I'm hoping that this tablet works. We're going to find out. And I'm going to put something on the screen, and it's going to look big and scary and nasty, and I'm going to tell you where to look, and so you don't have to worry about it looking complicated, okay? We're going to talk about equalization. All right, ignore all of this. I want you to look right up here, okay? That's the only thing we're going to look at. I wish I had a way to zoom in on just this part. Well, let's see if this is going to be connected. Good, okay. So, I'm going to turn the EQ off and set it to 0. The tablet interface is just what I wish I could show on the screen, but it makes it a lot easier to control. So I'll show you that. Let's make sure that our speaker's on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay. Why is it? Oh, because it's muted. All right. What's that? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there. Everybody hear me? There's a reverb. I'm going to turn that effect off. Hang on a second here. I never thought it'd come to a day where it was easier to control things with the tablet than. All right, 1, 2. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at the EQ. Turn it up just a touch. All right, microphone into a cord. You can hear it all right, it sounds okay. Whoops. Let's go back to the, all right. But we can make it better. The first thing, when you're EQing the microphone, is I'm gonna cut out the low end. And that seems kind of counterintuitive to those of us men in here, right? We want that big booming Auctioneer sound, and so why would we want to bring the low end out? Well, at some point, the human voice can't produce sounds below a certain frequency. But what can send sounds below that frequency are pops like that, right? Pops and drops and anything that's not the human sound. We want to keep that out of the speaker. It's better on our sound equipment for one, and it's going to make it sound better as well. So I'm going to turn on the low cut, and I'm going to bring it up until I can start to hear it make a difference, right? That's obviously too much because now it sounds tinny, so I'm going to back it out to about right there. And that's where I want it to be. Okay? So this is a representation. This line is a representation of the sound that's going through the speaker. The next thing I want to do is I want to crispen it up. I want people to understand my contents. So I've got a high shelf here. We'll turn it on and bring it up. Now that's a little bit too much because we're getting a little bit tinny. But I bring it up a little bit just to make it sound a little better. And then the last thing that I do a lot of times is I will bring out some of the middle. And so I'm going to make that a little wider and drop it down. And now, does this sound better? Or does this sound better? Can you hear the difference in the two? And if you really want a little bump up on the bottom end, you can do that, right? You can do something like this and bring your low end up. Be careful, because a lot of times that can get annoying in a hurry if you do that too much, right? So, this mic I bought when I was 17 years old. I bought 3 of them for $60. This is a Samson R11. It is cheap. It is old. It has been in a lot of places, a lot of shows, done a lot of things. And so, but that doesn't sound too terribly bad, right? You can listen to an auctioneer talk through that. It sounds okay. I'm going to switch to a good mic. This is about a $250 microphone. This is the Shure Beta 87C. If you are outside, these foam covers are very valuable to keep the wind noise down pretty substantially. If you're switching microphones with people, I would encourage your own. I'd encourage you to have your own mic. It's a short investment, especially when you can guarantee that you've got a nice microphone wherever room you walk into. So I'm going to turn the EQ off, right? So we'll go back to a flat sound.
Now that's your condenser mic.
This is the condenser mic, and I'm going to turn it on here, and we'll see how this sounds. 1, 2, 3, and you know what? It's not working. Why is it not working? Because we need to turn the power on. Where is it? There it is. So, turn on the phantom power, and now we've got it coming through. All right, so now we bring this up, and this is with no equalization, and I think it sounds just even better than that last microphone did, right? But now we can turn this on like we had before, and it's almost too much, and so we can bring this down a little bit, make these changes less pronounced, and I still think this is a pretty good sounding microphone. Sound better than the other one? Makes sense? Any questions on equalization? All right. So that's the EQ. Where'd my pointer go? And underscore the fact that when it comes to microphones, you pretty much get what you pay for, right? For production mic, I don't know that I would spend more than $200 or $300 for an auction microphone. Like I said, you can spend $3 grand for a studio mic or more, but that doesn't make any sense for us. But when you go and you buy that $50 microphone, you're getting a $50 microphone. Yeah, question.
Where did you get the interface for the tablet?
Right, so that's a great question. And I kind of skipped over that part when we were talking about mixers. This mixer right here is a Behringer. This is an XR 18, it means it has 18 input channels. They sell one that is, this is about $600. They sell one that's cheaper, the XR 12, the 12 channel, which if I was just doing auction stuff, that is absolutely what I would get. I bought the big one because I use it more for my band than anything else. I don't do a lot of contract auction work. And so,
Just paid $400 for it.
no way. Wow. He just bought one, Tony did, and 400 is all, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
right around 400.
Yeah. The 12 channel version is $250. So if all you want is 1 or 2 channels or whatever for the 12 channel, and they do the same thing, they're really inexpensive. Incredibly inexpensive compared to what it would cost to have all of these effects and a mixer before. So, but that comes with the app that works on your mobile devices or whatever, and it's nice, right? Because you're walking around, you can pull out your phone and change your volume without having to walk backstage to fiddle with stuff, right? I use it with my band. They can control the mix in their ears with their phones by themselves to just control their own mix, and they don't have to say, hey, can you turn my monitor up, right? We've all been to concerts where they, asking about that stuff. Yeah. Now they just pull out their phone and change it for them on the fly. So it's pretty powerful technology.
And it comes with that app ability?
Yeah, the app's free. You can download the app right now. It's just not going to work if you don't have the hardware, right? And it comes with software for the computer, and that's what we're looking at right here is the Windows package, and I'm sure they probably have something. I'm sure they have something for the Mac as well. You can do a lot more with the computer interface, but everything I've ever needed to do, I was able to do with the tablet. So it's pretty powerful, pretty simple. that's what the tab looks like. And if you look on the screen, as I move that, it's changing. Right, and you can have a bunch of people having the same app open and making changes at the same time. Like I said, different band members or whatever. With EQ, when I was doing that, it's pretty easy to make whatever changes you want to make. So,
Once you kind of get that EQ set, that's kind of set for you and for the mic that you're
right.
using.
So that's a great question.
Does it differ in venue?
Yes. Can. Not as much. Not nearly as much. I would probably take this EQ curve for this mic just about everywhere with this speaker. If I plugged it into different speakers, or if it was in a different room, I could imagine having to change it some. Right? Or if it was a different person. So you're EQing, it's kind of a combination of the person, the mic, the speaker, and the room. Changing any of those things drastically, you might want to tweak it a little bit, but not a whole lot. Most of it is going to be the microphone and the speakers.
You would kind of look at it right away and kind of set it before you ever pick it up and have an idea of,
Yeah. This is
because
not,
this mic and my voice
it's
are
not
gonna go.
something you're going to have to be fiddling with between items in your auction. No. You get it set, you're probably going to be good. You might want to make some changes every now and then. Any questions on EQ? Okay.
I
Yeah.
got one question.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the Bose tower,
Mhm.
and with it comes, I've got the tone match, but that's kind of limited to like 3 channels or 4, I think. Can something like that work in place of that tone match on there?
Yes, because I was just looking into it with Jeff through, and
Mhm.
you can substitute this and come out of that and go through and bypass the tone match, or go through.
The tone match does have, like you say, rudimentary, but basic EQ, compressor, and gate, which are the next 2 things we're talking about. I know that's in there. I haven't played a lot with those, but
It's pretty healthy as far as what you can do with it, but I'm limited to 3 mics and 1 other thing, or 4 mics.
Right.
Where if I want to use my Bose in a music setting, I
Mhm.
don't have enough
yeah, for
input stuff.
to get the 12 channel for $250 for all of the things that you get and the increase in control, it's tough to beat. Tough to beat. All right, so that's the first thing. Let's talk about the next great innovation in sound, and that is compression. Right? Compressor. We're going to turn on a compressor and we're going to air up some tires. All right, now hopefully the hotel doesn't get massive for this part of the demonstration. All right, so compressor's off. So here's the representation of the signal level coming in, right? And here's me whispering and talking nice and low, and then I'm gonna have to get loud, and you can hear it get louder, right? Right, that's the way microphones work. It's called dynamics, or dynamic range, right? The soft and then the loud. Now, what if I told you there was a way to reduce that dynamic range and make the softs louder and keep the louds from being too loud? Have you ever been to an auction where you have one guy selling and he switches microphone and then all of a sudden the next guy is a lot louder? We've all been to auction contests, right? So what a compressor does is it simply compresses that dynamic range. That's what it's named for, but it reduces the peaks. And so let's see here. What's the best way to turn this on? So I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to bring the range down a lot here. I want to preset vocal. Yes.
It's like a smart TV that doesn't play the commercials too loud.
That's right. All right, so you see as I look right here at this top left box, and that's kind of a representation of if the bottom is the input level, right, and the top is the output level. As the input level goes to the right, the output level tapers off. Does that kind of make sense? Let's see if we can show this in action here. Turn that ratio up quite a bit. Bring that down. So if it's working, I'm still unconvinced here. There we go. All right. So here's what it is when I'm talking just normally, right? But I can yell really loud, and it doesn't change much coming out of the speaker. It's tough in a room like this, right? But you can kind of get the idea. I'm pretty much whispering right now, but I can speak really loud, and it doesn't get crazy loud over there. Whereas if I did it before, let me take it off. We'll turn it off here, right? And go really loud, and it gets louder. I wish we were in a different place where I could demonstrate it better, but you guys have any, you understand what and you see where the value would be, right? Especially for the auctioneers that don't have a lot of mic experience and want to get up there and want to get really super excited and yell at people, and instead of the people in the front row getting upset and want to leave, it's fine because it doesn't change very much. Now, that's compression. How many of you have been to an auction and the auctioneer talks to the clerk and brings the headset down and says, you know, blah, 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 and every word of it you can hear over the speakers, right? We've seen that before too. So, that's where the next innovation, called a gate. A gate comes in. So a gate says we're only going to amplify sound above a certain level. Okay? So I'm going to find the gate here. We're going to turn it on. 1, 2, 3. Right? So here's where we want to look. Right here, the green line is the input level, and that little slider is going to be the gate level. Okay, I'm going to turn the volume up some so you guys can hear it and see it. Right? If we put this gate up, let's make it clear like this, right? Nothing's coming out of the speaker. Unless I yell, now that's a little high. Unless I say this, and then it comes out. But I can talk like this all day long. It's not going to come out of the speaker. Does that make sense?
You could hear it click once you got to that.
You can hear it click when it goes over the gate. Yes, exactly. Now you can configure this gate. You can make it a little softer and do all sorts of things. But you understand how fiddling with the gate and the compressor can dramatically improve the quality of your sound at your live auctions. Does that make sense? Yes, well, you see this presets?
Go back to factory settings.
So that's what this preset is over here on the left side there, right? If I want a kick drum, I can load what it is for a kick drum, but for vocal, you can get a pretty good preset for vocal representation right there, and then you can make adjustments as you need to, right? That gate's a little bit aggressive.
In that tone match, you go pick what microphone brand.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, and you can download presets for this as well. So,
Aaron.
yeah.
There is a horse auctioneer, one of y'all might know his name. He is from Alabama, sells typically what I've seen him sell anyway on the internet, horse auctions. This guy sells with so dang much excitement.
Woodruff?
Thank you, Woodruff. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
I don't know, but
He's a hand.
Oh, is he a hand? But if I tried to sell like that for 15 minutes, I wouldn't have a vocal cord left.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if he's doing it through soundboards versus with his own voice. Is there a way to do that?
well, I don't know. So the soundboard's not going to help you with intensity and excitement, but it will help with volume, right? And so you don't have to yell. That's what we go back to what we were talking about earlier, right? If you ever find yourself yelling at a microphone, then you can fix that, right? Or you should be able to fix that with proper sound system. You pulling him up?
Yeah, the guy's great, but that's, with that much intensity now, I'm telling you, I don't know how he does it. I have no idea how human voice can handle that much.
Sounds like he's a pretty good singer.
Yeah.
I told you he was a hand. I wasn't listening.
If you're using a good sound system,
Yeah.
you're not working your vocal cords at all. You don't have to put very much pressure, intensity into it. It's just very little effort on the vocal cords, and the electronics are doing the work. And it can, in 4, 5, 6 hour, 8 hour sale, it's all the difference in the world. Yeah.
What's the name of that system again?
This is a Behringer X Air.
I like
XR18.
it was 500 with the discount, not 400.
500.
It is up around 600, but it came down to
Retail is 6. You get a good guitar center for a bad one for you, and you can get it for $500. And you can probably get that 12 channel for about $200 then. It's that much of a percentage.
$250.
This is the X Air. The X Air is the line. This model is the XR18. The XR12 is about half price and has all of the same effects and everything built into it. It just, instead of 18 plugs on the front, you've got 12, which I think is still plenty if all you're doing is auction stuff.
I don't know how many of you would be interested, but if you are interested, and he'll work with any of us, but I go through a Guitar Center Pro out of Texas, he's around Dallas area. He goes to a bunch of NAA events, and he's a rep for Texas, and he will work with any auctioneer and get a pretty substantial discount.
I think I sold about 5 of these for him when I presented this in the Texas Auctioneers
Is
Association
that
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, super nice guy.
Jeffrey McDaniel.
Yep.
I've got his contact information if you're interested.
He's the guy for us when we get away from his booth.
Yeah. All right, so to review, talked about equalization, right? We shaped what that sound is like. Is that him?
It's not the one he's wanting, but I've got him found.
Yeah, he's just going hard. Yeah, I'd say he's working a little harder than he probably ought to be. If he had a good sound system, he might be able to calm down a little bit. But you know, if that's his thing, and
His dad was Merlin Woodruff, but this is Todd Woodruff.
yeah.
Todd Woodruff, Merlin Woodruff.
You can kind of hear some distortion in there, and I don't know if that's a function of the phone they use to record it, which doesn't seem like it's the highest quality feed. And so either that's in the speakers and he's yelling too loud and distorting a little bit, or it's in the recording.
He's selling out at the top, so you know the speaker's not top, will probably not the best.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah.
So there are two different types of equalizers, right? On the old soundboards, we had the graphic EQ, which has a fixed set of knobs, right? Your low, your medium, and your mid-range, and your high. You don't have a lot of control there. You've got some. Most of the time, what I'll go in and do is, for a vocal, I will pull this low out, because below 80 hertz, you don't really have anything in your voice that'll do that anyway. And then I'll bring the high up, and that's about all you can do, to bring that high up to make it a little crisper, clearer, cleaner. But the parametric EQ is the completely variable that we were just playing around with, where we can change the frequencies and we can change that shape as much as we want to. All right, your compressor. And for those of you who have like a walk-around system, you can get a compressor for something like that, right? Here's an analog compressor with just a couple of knobs on the front of it, and you plug your mic in and output, and you can have that, and it's also got a gate. I think no gate. I saw gain. But anyway, this is an option at 60 or 80 bucks for something like that. And that's a pretty significant component of what an XR12 would cost. And so 80 bucks on a compressor, you might as well spend $250 for the full deal.
What about the bass singer? Having built-in equalizers and things like that into the speaker systems?
It's good. I mean, it's about as good as you're going to find in just a handheld, portable walk-around thing, but it's nowhere near the control that you have here. And I've asked him.
Yeah, they're like that.
Yeah, I actually talked to him if he knew of any portable system on the market that had compressors and gates and things like that in it. He said he was not aware of anything at the time. Now, one thing to remember or to think about is when you introduce wireless microphones, most of them will have some type of gating and compression built into them at some point, right? They'll have, and they may call it something else. They may call it automatic volume leveling or something, some crazy term like that. But they are built to have some of that in there. And so you may not get as much benefit adding this stuff to a wireless system as you would a wired system.
Are they adjustable in those?
And that's the problem. It's not really. I have some wireless systems, and I still use compression and gates on
Run
them.
your wireless through that.
I run my wireless through that to have a little more control over it and amp and.
Or you're gonna have all your equalization control.
Yeah. So.
You can run your wireless back through that?
Yeah. So the output of the wireless microphone, wherever that wireless receiver is, plugs in here, along with the CD player and whatever else I want to control the room environment with, and then this sends the output directly to the speakers.
That wireless receiver is, look at it as that cord.
Box.
It is just that cord.
Right, so,
Okay.
Corky, I wish you hadn't taken yours back to the truck.
so your any wireless system's going to have a receiver box that looks something like this, right? Something like this. Probably isn't going to rattle.
Drop number 6.
Yeah, but you're gonna have your receiver box, and then the output is gonna have basically the same plug that your microphone would have on the back of it, right? An XLR. And so you would send this. This is a 2-channel receiver. It goes into your channels, and then you can control it on there, right? And we were talking about the lavalier mic earlier, right? Click on, we've all seen those reviews. So,
Can't believe you have one.
what's that?
Can't believe you have one.
Tool for the toolbox.
Tool for the toolbox.
Come on, that's your thing this morning.
Yes, sir.
You forgot. Keep up with us, Jeff.
Demonstration. It's really just Aaron's show and tell, right? It's been about 10 years I've been talking about internet auctions and technology and stuff, and I thought, well, they're probably getting kind of bored of me talking about that. What else do I like? And I thought, as an auctioneer, we collect things, right? And I collect lots of sound equipment, and so it was something to.
Dovetails with your musician.
Yeah. All right. Software. Okay. Any questions on any of the? Oh, so the limiter and the gate. I think compression and gating is probably the most underutilized and most valuable effect that auctioneers could implement to improve the quality of the sound of live auctions. Right. Your compressor reduces the range, brings up the lows, and reduces the highs so that the volume is consistent when it comes out. The limiter prevents excessive loudness. Most of the time when you talk about a compressor, it's a compressor/limiter. It's kind of the same function. And then the gate sets the threshold where it starts triggering the output through the speaker. Questions about any of that? So, let's talk about software. I'm a big fan of free software. So that's what we're going to talk about today, but there are some relatively inexpensive packages that I'll mention. So, let's say we want to record a commercial for our auction, right? Wouldn't it be better, rather than just sending the copy, right, sending the words, the script, to the radio station, wouldn't it be better if we could just send them the sound file? That way it's our voice, right? Wouldn't it be better if we could do it at home and not have to worry about going into the studio? Wouldn't it be better if we could do it with a quality microphone and recording rather than doing it through the phone, as I've heard sometimes done, right? You can, and it's cheap and it's easy. So we're gonna look at Audacity, which is audio recording software. It's free. You need to have either a USB microphone or an audio interface. This X-Air doubles as an interface to where you can take this microphone and it shows up in the computer as a recording interface, right? So that's what we're going to use today. Your pro studios have what's called DAW, or it's a digital audio workstation, and really, really expensive software, which is not necessary in my opinion if all you're wanting to do is record a commercial. So we'll look at that here in just a second. For video editing, we're going to look at Windows Movie Maker today, only because it's easy. It is free and you can still run it. It's hard to find a download anymore since it was discontinued by Microsoft. So it does come with Windows 7. You can still use it on Windows 8 and 10 if you can find the download. If you're interested in it, let me know. But there are some other free options out there that you might look at. Shotcut, I think, is free. Adobe Shotcut. Adobe Premiere is kind of the industry standard, along with Apple Final Cut, are some really good high quality products. Adobe is certainly not cheap, but if you're already paying for Creative Suite or somebody in your office is, then you've got access to that.
Have you used Premiere?
I have not used any Adobe products.
I've used Apple Cut and Adobe
Yeah.
Premiere.
The one that I use is this CyberLink Power Director.
Did you say Adobe what?
Adobe Premiere. I like this CyberLink Power Director. It's, I don't know, $90 for the ultimate version or whatever, and it's got some features that I've not found in some of the other ones that I really like as far as zooming and cropping. the Power Directory.
Aaron,
It's-
I use the free version that comes with Apple.
Mhm.
Is the Apple
iMovie?
Final,
iMovie, yeah.
Is the Apple Final Cut like
You have to purchase
way above
it.
that or about
You have
the
to
same
purchase
thing?
it, and it's like,
It's a lot better.
I wanna say it was about 400 if I
Yeah,
remember.
it's not
right.
cheap.
It's a lot more features.
A lot more
Yeah,
features.
there's
I
a
mean,
lot more editing and like being able to clip.
iMovie does a lot.
And I think, I always looked at Windows Movie Maker and iMovie is fairly similar, but while I like free stuff, it's not that expensive to move up to something like Power Director. All right, so let's do commercial here. So I need a volunteer. Who wants to read the copy? You want to do it? Who are you volunteering?
Still here.
All right,
Yeah.
Morgan's going to be
Reserve
our.
camp. Come on, reserve camp.
All right, so
Be ready for next year.
we're going to save a little bit of the time, right? We want to think about the copy that we write from a marketing perspective, right? So we want to use the tools, the techniques that we use in AMM about writing something that is engaging, that has the right details in the right order and all of that. We could take a whole class on that. We're not going to spend that much time. So I've written the copy for us, right? And so we're going to, for the purposes of today, our example is going to be a landscaping company that goes out of business. So we're going to sell a bunch of mowers, right? So here's going to be our copy. We're going to make a 30-second radio commercial, okay? So I'm going to come over here to Audacity. So this is what Audacity looks like. It's pretty basic. And I'm going to hit the record button, and we're just going to let that go. I'm going to make sure everything's on here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's make sure this works. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. It's recorded. So we'll hit the record button here. I'm going to give you the microphone here and give me just a second. I'm going to come back over and I'm going to turn that gate off. I don't need the gate. And actually, I'm going to turn the compressor off too, because we're going to do the compression in the software. All right, so we're recording, and I'll go ahead and have you just read it like a commercial.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory of XYZ landscaping to the highest bidders. Don't miss this opportunity to name your price for mowers, tractors, trimmers, trailers, and more. The auction is Saturday, August 11th at 123 Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma, and starts at 10 a.m. View the complete inventory and learn more at auctioneerwebsite.com.
Good job.
Thank you for your
Help.
Cut one.
Complete. So let's take a look here, and I am unsure. We'll see if this is gonna.
Take 223.
We'll see if this is
Right,
gonna.
with this one, I promise you.
I'm normally using.
Never did that. Never did. Sorry, Jerry.
You didn't record.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory of XYZ lands.
So that's where we start, right there. So I'm gonna just delete that so that we're starting here. And I'm not gonna mess with it now, but the gain structure we talked about earlier is not right because we should be able to see a lot more of this sound. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna say normalize, and that should bring that volume up. There we go. Right, so now this could be pretty loud, so hang on. Ooh, yes. All right. So that's, hear that white noise in there? Let me figure out where that's coming in on.
This doesn't look very simple.
Yeah, what?
Just saying.
So,
Trying this at home, just left the window.
Your idea is simple and mine is not.
So I would say this, and I get that. I am trying to do this in a demonstration on stuff that I just put together. Once you get it set up, and that's the thing, is it might take you 5 hours on a Saturday to just go home and figure out how to get it all to work right. Once you get it done and it's repeatable, then it doesn't take that long, right? My turnaround time is for start to finish, from writing the copy to being done with the recording on a 30-second radio spot for one of our auctions, and I time this, and I'm consistently between 11 and 15 minutes on being done with it. Right? It's repeatable once you get it down, and then it's not going to be 11 minutes the first time out of the gate, but once you get it set up, it's not that bad. And I just need to.
How many of these do you do a week?
I generally try and do one for each auction, and we generally have between 3 and 4 auctions a week. So on average, 3 to 4 a
One
week.
a day?
Essentially. I do them in batches a lot of times.
So then you send these out to the radio stations?
So we don't actually do a radio commercial for every auction. I record these and make them available on our website, and then I use these and I do a video for each auction when I'm at the desk and not farming, which is a different story. But when I'm at the desk, I do a video, a 30-second video for every auction, and I use this as the audio for that, and that's what
you just put pictures.
That's what we're working.
Videos.
That's what we're working towards. Yeah. So. But I'm going to,
And then you can use that with social media or whatever.
yes, exactly. So for some reason, the recording wasn't.
It wasn't because of just being a condenser mic, was it?
No, it's, let's see here.
Just like this.
That's where it was. Can you mind trying that again?
Take 2.
Counting it, would you, for one?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, see, now when we're recording, we're actually getting a good signal down here. I had something set wrong in the soundboard, so we're gonna like this a lot more. So go ahead and read it again if you don't mind.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory of XYZ landscaping to the highest bidders. Don't miss this opportunity to name your price for mowers, tractors, trimmers, trailers, and more. The auction is Saturday, August 11th at 123 Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma, and starts at 10 a.m. View the complete inventory and learn more at auctioneerwebsite.com.
Excellent. Excellent.
What did you change on the board?
So, and this is a function of me using my board on Friday to play a show, and it was set up for me in the bar and using a different mic and all of that, and so that's why it was set up here. But I had the gain was way down, and so I turned the gain way up and turned the volume here so it wouldn't be too loud, and after I did that, then we get a good signal right here in Audacity, right? So you can see with your eyes before we apply any effects at all, that, and so still a little loud, sorry about that.
Even I can hear that.
So much for that compression.
Yes, exactly. Let's see if I can get this out.
Little crispy tail.
All right, so.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory of XYZ landscaping to the highest bidders.
Okay, so it sounds good, right?
Absolute auction, as long as the price meets.
So there's our recording. I'm still going to go in and normalize it.
And what's that doing?
And what that does is it takes the highest level and it brings the whole volume of everything up, just so it's as loud as possible before peaking, before distorting. Okay, and let's do a. I'll give you an example of distortion. We'll say allow clipping. Right. So this is what it looks like when something's distorted.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest.
And that's what it sounds like when something's distorted, right? You hear that it's not good. So I'll undo that, and I'm going to just go in and normalize it, and that's going to make everything loud, but not allow clipping, right? So it brings it up a little bit, but not much, and it didn't do it much, which means we got a good signal level when we first recorded, right? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit with my mouse here, and I'm going to delete this little bit at the beginning so it starts right here.
Landscaping equipment.
Right, sounds good. Now, we're going to compress it. Okay, so we set a 30-second. You did a great job reading it faster than that. And so let's say we need to get under 25 seconds. Okay, let's say that's our cutoff. And right now we're at 27. So the first thing we're going to do is listen to it and come in and we'll take out.
Equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th.
Right, so let's take that out.
August 11th.
There's another breath. Take that out.
To the highest bidders.
Take that out. I don't know why it's crackling.
To the highest bidders. Don't miss it.
We'll figure that out in a minute. That's not a problem with the sound file here. So we'll take these out.
You're gonna turn blue when he's
In Ada, Oklahoma, and starts at 10 a.m. View the complete inventory and learn at auctioneerwebsite.com.
Right? So now it sounds good. We're still not to 25 yet. So let's change the tempo. And we'll get down to 24 and a half.
How about that?
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday.
Don't notice
No
much.
noticeable change.
Can't hardly notice it, but we got it under
Just-
time. Let's do it a little more pronounced though.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday.
So that's how you do those legal notices.
Disclaimers, legal disclaimers, that's right. We'll undo that, but we got it down under 25.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th.
Sounds great, still can do better. Let's compress it. So I'll add a compressor, and this is just the default compressor. But look how much louder that signal is now, and listen to what it sounds like.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory.
Is richness a good term there? It just.
A little bit. It brings up the lows and it tightens the highs, and it's starting to sound like what you hear on the radio, isn't it?
Landscaping equipment.
And you can even.
Landscape.
Oops. Didn't mean to record. You can even go in and
Job for you in the future, Morgan.
if you want to, you can add some EQ, right? Let's say that's our EQ curve, we can apply that.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC.
Sounds good. And if I hadn't had to spend 5 minutes trying to figure out what I had set wrong from the other night, it'd take us about 10 minutes to do that, right? So, we're going to save that.
And you save that as
I'm going to export it. I'm going to just put it on my desktop and call it Oklahoma Landscaping. All right, and it's just going to save it as an MP3. And you can save it as an MP3 or a WAV, whatever. All right, so we're done here. Okay. So there's our commercial, and it's on the desktop. And this, if we wanted to put it on the radio, we just email that file. And
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction.
there we go, just fine.
Cheesy music to put behind
Do that too.
So can you do that?
You can do that with Audacity. You can bring in some other music. It does some multi-track. Like you can mess with layered stuff. There's another product called Cakewalk that if I was going to do a lot of multi-channel stuff is probably what I would look into. It is free. It recently became free. I used to spend a lot of money on it. That was my, on that slide, the digital audio workstation thing. They went out of business and then they came back and made a free version. So that's probably what I would look at if I wanted a lot more powerful.
They weren't making enough money, so they made it free.
Yeah, so
No, I'm sorry.
Well, business being free now.
they were owned by Gibson Guitar. And Gibson went bankrupt here recently. They fired everybody that worked on Cakewalk, and then another company called BandLab came in and bought the Cakewalk IP, and so they're releasing it under a new company. Is the way it went down. All right, so that's the audio part. Let's look at video. Like I said, I'm going to look at Windows Movie Maker. Pretty simple, right? It starts up as this, and I've got let's say we have a folder that has all of our assets, all of our videos for this auction, right? And so you simply take one and you drag it over, take another and drag it over, and that's how easy it is to add to add content to Movie Maker. We'll add some of these now. And then we'll go in. Let's say we don't have a video of these 4 items, but we just have pictures. And so I'm going to drag those in just as if they were video. Right? So I've got some content over there now. But this content is 7 minutes and 47 seconds long, which is a little longer than our 24.5 seconds of audio, right? So we need to edit these in such a way to get the highlights. The first thing I'm going to do is say that each one of these, and I'm going to hold the button here and select these, right? And I'm not saying that you're going to know home and immediately know how to do this. I'm just saying I want you to understand that it's relatively simple once you get to know it, right? Just like running a spreadsheet. You don't intuitively know how to do it, but it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So I'm going to select these. I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to say I want them to be 2 seconds each. Okay, so now each of these images is 2 seconds each. Okay, so I'm going to come into these, and I'm going to grab the 2 seconds that I like here, and I'm going to go up to this trim tool, and I'm going to say I kind of want it. So I scrub it to see what's there. I want right here. I just want to have him turn in that corner. That's what I want. So I'm going to move this over here. All right, start point's 1162, and I want 2 seconds of it, so I'm going to say 1362, and we're done. We're going to save trim. I'll just have to do that a couple of times. Any questions while I'm going through and doing this?
How can I mow my edges without mowing?
No, but I'd really like to
You
have
did
the
have
one
that,
with
though.
AC.
Where's the chance?
I've seen that picture on Facebook.
And you know, someone did it.
I kind of like to find them when they're doing something other than just going forward or backwards, like turning. It seems to make it better.
Or lowering those arms.
Lowering the arms, yeah. Make it look like they're doing something. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oops. I need to remember to use the trim tool.
It's actually mowing grass, that red mower. Maybe.
That's a problem. Sometimes when you're selling lawnmowers in the wintertime, there's not a lot of grass you can show being mowed.
Mow snow.
All right.
A little bit.
You can probably beat yourself up on this as much as you want to,
As far as,
picking out the exact right
yeah.
spot.
Oh, yeah. You gotta, there's definitely
Pick a
a
spot and go on.
law of diminishing returns as far as how much time you wanna spend on it.
But the more you do it, the easier you quickly
Exactly.
notice what you want to convey.
I've gotten, because I've told you I track my time, I'm to the point where it takes me between 45 minutes and an hour to do a 30-second spot. And that's starting from scratch and pulling in all of the videos and looking at each one. And I go through and I will crop and zoom and do some additional stuff that's not necessarily possible on Movie Maker. And that includes that time. If I was just using Movie Maker, I could probably do them in 20 to 30
Take
minutes.
shadow out of that?
Yeah, take your pictures and then get rid of shadow.
Right. All right, so,
But then you have some powerful content that you can use across platforms.
right, oh, I think it's worth it all day long, because then you've got a 30-second spot that goes to YouTube and to Instagram and to Facebook, and you can upload it to your website if you want to. All right, we're almost done here. I mean, I'm doing this in front of you guys. We're going from start to finish here. The only work I did ahead of time is I just had that folder that had all the videos in it, right? So, I mean, there's gonna be some time you're gonna have wrapped up in actually taking the video, right? But you're gonna take that anyway as part of the listing process for the items on your website, right? So we'll start here. Oops. Okay, all right, that's enough. I'm gonna say we're not gonna use these. Now, I like to mix them up. I wouldn't want to start with the chainsaw, right? Like our discussion earlier about having the best stuff first. I'm gonna move that in to the middle here and make it so we start with a video and a couple of videos and drag them around here. So here's where we are right now. I'm gonna turn that down.
Wait a minute.
It'll withdraw my bid on that.
What do you think? I think these pictures are boring. So I'm gonna highlight them, and I'm gonna come up to visual effects, nope, animations, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna add this effect to them. So now watch what happens. Better than just a still picture, right?
And you may only want to limit it for a second and a half instead of 2, where you get an action in a video.
Couple of seconds, and then the other thing is, I'm gonna add some transitions. So I'm gonna say, because it's fun, I think there's the old, I don't see it. I was looking for the old Star Wars transition, you know, something like that.
Ninja Warriors.
There we go. I don't think I'd actually use it in production, but for our purposes, it's all right. All right, so we're getting there. Now, let's fade it in. So I'm gonna say, oh, where is it? Effects. I thought there was, oh, there we go. So somewhere you say fade in from black. That's the one I want. So we've got a fade in. All right, that's nice. I'm going to take this last image. We're going to take him and we're going to say fade out to black. Okay, so that's our ending right there. Good. So let's drag in our commercial.
And Aaron, for those that are thinking, man, this is a lot of stuff going on, a lot to do, and do I want to learn on that? It really is not that complicated once you familiarize yourself. But here's the motivation. You can take your grandkids' pictures and videos, your vacation, whatever, and do all the same thing, and you can apply it to other things. You get some personal satisfaction out of that, but then you can use it for business, one way or the other.
Exactly.
That doesn't motivate. This motivates because if it generates more money, then I can go spend more time with the grandkids.
There you go.
So it turned out to be not quite long enough for the recording that we had, and so I'm just adding one more video.
Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma.
Looks like I was still short. I don't know, did I not? I needed 12. For some reason, I didn't have enough in there. All right. Oh, for crying out loud. I'm gonna cheat. Come on. Is it that long? I didn't think it was that long. My math is wrong, or some. I wonder if I didn't get didn't accidentally put something in here that wasn't quite long enough. So we'll add one more here. We'll add the ATV or UTV again. Pretend like it's a different one.
For me, I think cut that chainsaw while I'm out.
You're probably right. I was just using it as an example of an image. So
Website.com.
Unless it starts itself, has its own.
Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma.
there was our fade out, was there. All right, so these last ones, they're not gonna have the,
August 11th at
The
123 Main
transitions.
Street.
my OCD says they will.
I wondered that you was gonna
You know, OCD or CDL?
Oh, you know what? That's what happened. So the transitions, I had the transitions too long. They were a second and a half. And so when you do that, it squeezes them together. And that's why I knew something was messed up. So I'm going to set them back to a quarter second each.
Equipment is selling to the highest bidders.
There we go. Now our time's right. I knew there was something wrong. So we're going to delete those. All right.
Complete inventory and learn at auctioneerwebsite.com.
Okay. Sorry about that.
How did you get the audio in there?
Just dragging
Yeah.
Click and drag.
We can drag. Here, watch this. I'll get it out of there. I'll hit delete. Now it's gone.
So it's drug into
Yeah,
that
all I
same
did-
folder.
Right, so just like dragging a video in, I take this MP3 file and I just bring it back here to the beginning, and there it is.
Selling to the highest
But
bidders and absolute
can't hear it,
offers.
right? Because of the loud noises in the background. So we go over here to option, where is it? Project, there. So the audio mix. So I'm gonna drag over here to emphasize the narration. And now listen.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August
Now
11th.
it's next
ABC auction.
I still like to have a little bit of that video sound in the background, right? Because we've had some ambient noise. Right?
Right.
You were saying put some music behind it, so it doesn't sound just bare. We get the engines in the background, but not so much that it takes away from the voiceover, right?
At auctioneerwebsite.com.
I need to fade out here. I lost my fade out when I was fiddling.
At auctioneer.
Got to black.
At auctioneerwebsite.com.
All right, cool. How about that? What else? What are we missing?
Your website address and all that.
Right. So, actually, I don't want a title because I think that's a waste of time and space. So what I want is a caption. And the caption actually sits on top of the thing.
The highest bidders in an
Right. So what we can do then is say landscaping equipment auction. Right. Something like that, and if we want to play around with fonts, we can do that. And there's a lot of things. I'm not going to waste a ton of time, but that's how
The highest bidders.
That's how easy it is to add text on it. And if I want, I can do something cool like.
The highest bidders in an
Or we can. Let's do this. I like this one.
Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th.
If that's not long enough, I'll just change the duration. Instead of 1 second, we'll say it's 4 seconds, right?
The highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling.
Or whatever you want it to say, right? And just examples here. Let's add another one. At the end, and we'll make it 2 seconds. And let's put it down here towards the end, and we'll let it hang out there.
Site.com.
All right, so that's the last thing we see. Make sense? How about that? So then we just say save. Save movie, high quality, put it on the desktop.
I don't know if you did it on purpose, but that website comes up right when she's saying it, so it reinforces it.
Exactly. Yes, I like that a lot. Right? And this computer is very old, so it takes it a while, but usually is a lot faster than that.
And you say you can still get
Windows Movie Maker. Yeah, you can still find it for download. If you want to get Movie Maker, send me an email and I'll send you one, because you can also find it on some sites that will probably try and install some malware and some bad things. You know, when you look for stuff that's no longer available, I can send you a clean copy. Or what I would recommend, if you want to get into easy video editing, like Tony said, iMovie if you're on a Mac for sure. And if not, something like Shotcut. There's also DaVinci Resolve is another free one that's pro quality. They're free. They have a free version. And then, like I said, this Power Director is the one that I used in production. That's $80, so it's relatively cheap.
What I'm after is simplistic learning curve.
Windows Movie Maker is definitely
Intuitive.
Definitely that.
Intuitive.
So while this is no, I'm not even gonna mess with that. So we'll wait on this to be done in a moment. Any questions on it so far?
That's pretty slick if I can figure out how to get somebody in my office.
Well, I don't know if you were, keeping score, but I think we started the recording process about 2 o'clock, and it's almost 2:30. So we've done all of this, and I mean, it feels like it's taken 11. At least up here, it feels like it's taken forever. But I mean, would you spend 30 minutes to have a 30-second commercial that you could then share for your auctions on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and wherever?
There's even an app, it's one of the GoPro apps, the video editor app, and you can make a video with just photos if you're doing photos instead of video
Right.
even, and you can piece it together in 5 minutes or less and export it, post it straight on Facebook, which is awesome.
We've got one of those apps that is part of it.
Yeah, the GoPro app has just like.
Landscaping
music.
equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday, August 11th. ABC Auction Company is selling the complete inventory of XYZ landscaping to the highest bidders. Don't miss this opportunity to name your price for mowers, tractors, trimmers, trailers, and more. The auction is Saturday, August 11th at 123 Main Street in Ada, Oklahoma, and starts at 10 a.m. View the complete inventory and learn at auctioneerwebsite.com. Landscaping equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute auction on Saturday.
I need to turn that auto repeat off, but wouldn't that, I mean, that works, doesn't it? Doesn't that work?
What did you have on there that was all the shuttering speed, is that what you said?
I'm sorry.
What did you say that you just needed to turn off?
Oh, the auto repeat. You tried to play it again as soon as it finished. I had that toggled on for some reason. Right?
Because you had that set up.
Did you put all them spots in there somehow that I wasn't paying attention, or is that just?
Oh, that was an effect that I added to the title,
Okay.
to that text. You mean this?
Equipment is selling to the highest bidders in an absolute.
That little effect right there, it was just one of the, I just checked the box there's a bunch of different effects like that, but it's kind of cool. Right?
That makes me think you need a new camera, but all right.
So, any questions about that? Any questions about any of the audio video stuff today? Probably.
But I will come up with them and I could play.
Well, you've got my contact information and all of this content. Now, I'll give you an option. That is the conclusion of my presentation for this particular thing today. I'm 30 minutes early and I have a 30-minute security presentation if you guys want to learn about being safe. The NAA is on a big kick for cybersecurity kind of stuff. If anyone is interested in that, otherwise.
So cybersecurity.
Is this some of the same stuff, because you briefly did it in Kansas
Yes,
City?
it's pretty much the same presentation. If you want me to talk about that for 30 minutes, I sure can.
There was some great information in there, I think. I'd listen to it again, but I'll leave that to this group.
All right.
Anybody opposed to it?
Anybody opposed
Opposed
to
what?
that?
If they are, they
Raise
can
your
go.
hand.
And if they are, they can just go.
That's right.
There is that.
Yeah.
You're opposed?
It's over if you are. So what?
Jeff, somebody raised my hand, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't raise my hand, it looks stupid. I
Since
didn't
when are
know.
you a conformist?
If you're not interested, you will not offend me in any way if you leave. That presentation was an hour-and-a-half presentation, and I hit the numbers, but we've got about a 2-hour block here. So if you want to look at some of this, this was a deck that I built for the state leadership conference in Kansas City, and the NAA is really on a push for helping with. They're realizing that as auctioneers, we have care, custody, and control of a lot of really personal, secure information from our customers, right? In the old days, we used to keep credit cards on file. I hope none of us does that now. Did you have a question?
Does this presentation have a URL as well?
No, it doesn't. I'm trying to, I thought I added it somewhere. I will have this up at, not, later it will be at SFA. Oops, how about that? This is Security for Auctioneers. That'll be the website that you'll go to. I hope nothing's there already.
I was gonna say, where are you sending this?
Let's make sure that there's nothing there. Okay, it's not there yet, so I will create that, share, and it will be available at some point soon. Okay? So the NAA has recognized that a lot of auctioneers have a lot of information about a lot of people, right? Some of our customer bases are pretty substantially big. And it's not just the credit card information that we need to be concerned about, right? Notification event, I think, counts if you've got address and phone number for somebody, right? And you lose that database, I think you have to tell them that you lost that
Driver's
database.
license information.
Driver's license information, a perfect example of something that you should not lose, right? And so there's a push at NAA to make auctioneers more aware of some of the threats that exist. So we're going to talk about threats, we'll talk about mitigations, right? That's really all I want to talk about right now. There's not a lot of slides here, so there's a lot on each one of these slides that we'll talk about individually. And so if we look at the most common threats that pose themselves to anyone in business, not just auctioneers, right, but anybody in business today, phishing. This is not what I like to do with my young boys on a Sunday afternoon, right? Phishing is generally done by email. You get an email and it says, hey, there's a problem with your bank account at PayPal. Click this link, you go to PayPal, and you don't look closely enough, and instead of PAYPAL, it says PAYPA1.com, and all of a sudden you're on some weird site that looks like PayPal, and you enter your username and password, and then the bad guys have your username and password of your PayPal account, and you don't have any money in your bank account anymore. Right? That's an example of a phishing attack. Right? Not a lot of people fall for it, but if you send out 1 billion emails, what percent of people do fall for it, even if it's a fraction of 1%? That's a lot of people that fall for it, right? That's why it still persists. Spear phishing is targeted phishing, right? So somebody wants you specifically, so they're going to send an email and make it look like somebody that you know or from your industry. Maybe it looks like it comes from somebody at National Auctioneer Association headquarters, right? Remember that from a few months back? That was actually going on. Somebody was sending emails to people they knew were auctioneers that made it look like it was somebody on the NA board from Hannes. So that's an example of spear phishing. Social engineering is something similar, right? How do we, you remember Stuxnet? Stuxnet was the name of the virus or the tool that was engineered by our government that took down the Iranian centrifuges, right? Those centrifuges were being controlled by computers that were air-gapped, meaning they were not on the network, they were not on the internet at all. And so how did we get a piece of virus into those computers? Left a USB key in the parking lot, and some scientist picked it up and wanted to see what was on it and plugged it in. That is social engineering. Right? Or use the old, what was the old example back in the days of the 3.5-inch floppy that we would put salaries.xls on it and leave it laying around somewhere, right? You wanted to know what everybody was making, you wanted to saw this that looked like it had a spreadsheet of salaries on it, right? It's enticing to plug it into your computer and all of a sudden they own you, right? That's social engineering. Brute force attack is a password attack. Somebody wants your password and so they don't know your password and so they start to guess. And they start with A and then AB and then ABC and then ABCD, right? And they just try one after another. Sounds like it's pretty hard. Sounds like it takes a long time until you realize that modern computers with big arrays of graphics processors can do trillions of these in a second, right? Malware is a term that encompasses viruses and worms and crypto, ransomware, and those kind of things. Basically any bad software. An exploit is basically a hole in your software that the bad guys can get in through. And then theft, right? We don't think about that as a threat, but it certainly exists, right? I don't see a lot of laptops in here, but if all of a sudden Callie went to her room and came back and her laptop was gone, it's no good, right? So those are the threats. And they are constantly being directed at you. It was, like I said, this was for the state association, but you just change your association to your business, right? It's not just you, it's your staff too, right? And your website. So, how do we fix all of those things, right? Sounds daunting, but there are some relatively easy solutions to most of those threats. And if we do just a few things differently, we can protect ourselves from a great many, if not all of them. So the first mitigation we're going to talk about is passwords, password hygiene. I recorded, you guys heard Andy's podcast about auctions, the Fast Talking podcast. Are you guys familiar with that? If not, it is timeless. You should go back and listen to a lot of those episodes. They're still very relevant. I recorded one of the episodes about passwords for that podcast. But in a nutshell, the answer to passwords is to have a different password for every site or service, and it needs to be long and it needs to be strong. And if you think about it, that's a pretty hard thing to do without help, right? If you need a password that's at least, I don't know, 30 or 40 characters long, a different one for each website, and can't ever include any words, that's hard, right? And so we need a solution, a service that manages our passwords for us. That's where LastPass comes in. And I'm not here to shill for any particular service. There are plenty of different password managers. LastPass happens to be the one that's trusted by most of the security podcasts that I certainly enjoy listening to, and the experts that I would consider experts in the industry. So I don't want to take a big deep dive into why LastPass is the most secure out there, but if you don't have a password system set up, here's the take home. Look at LastPass. It is not, they do have a free tier. I think what I use it for would be covered under the free tier, but I go ahead and subscribe to it anyway. It's like $1 a month.
They doubled the price.
They doubled.
It's now $24, but it's still cheap.
It'd still be a steal at twice that price, yeah. So 24 bucks a year, and it's worth it all day long. And so the way it works, it's a browser plugin. So whatever browser you use, you install the plugin. It's a mobile app, so whatever phone you have, it works. And when I go to Facebook on my phone, I see a little pop-up that says, do you want us to log in for you? And if I say yes, it says, okay, give me your fingerprint, right? So LastPass hooks to the fingerprint reader on my phone. So I hit that, and then it fills in the password to Facebook. My Facebook password is 60 characters long, and it's gibberish, and I don't know it, and I don't care, because I don't have to know it, because LastPass has it, right? And I don't have to worry about anybody guessing it, brute forcing it, right? Same way on the computer. When you first start using it, you turn it on. When you log into Facebook the first time, it says, hey, do you want us to remember this? You hit yes, and then you never have to type your password again, because whenever you go there, LastPass can automatically log you in, right?
Coolest feature about it is too, if you've got employees, you can set different levels, and so your employees don't have your password.
Right.
If you terminate them, then you can cut them out and they're gone.
Exactly. So,
It's super cool.
like services like Twitter
Yeah.
that don't let you delegate, right? You don't need to be managing your Twitter account. Maybe you want to, and that's fine, but if you want to have somebody doing it for you, you also don't want to give that person your actual password, right? Because if that person goes, rage quits on you and goes away, and then they've got control of your Twitter account, right? So LastPass lets you allow them to use LastPass to log in without ever having access to your real password. So it's a great way to delegate responsibilities there. But what's the problem with LastPass? What's the obvious problem?
Cost, somebody else has it.
What if I forget my password?
To LastPass.
Don't forget your password to LastPass, right? There are a couple of ways to get it back, right? But the other problem is what happens if they get hacked? And without going too much into the security model, the only way, even if somebody hacked the LastPass servers and stole all your stuff, it's an encrypted blob that nobody can access without your password. So even if they had everything that was stored at LastPass, unless they had your password, it does nobody any good, right? So that's the one thing you want to do, is make sure that your one password to LastPass is long, strong, and secure. But that's the only one you have to remember, and we can remember one good long password.
It could be like a line of a song or something that you remember that wouldn't be random for somebody else to remember.
Length is important, but entropy is also important, right? So make sure it's not just words, right? So make sure you get like 8 characters that are random, and then you can add words or patterns on your keyboard or whatever.
So I'm going into LastPass then, because I'm a fairly new user.
Sure.
You go into it and change the passwords to all your
Yes.
stuff.
Yes, so LastPass, and I'm not logged in on this particular computer.
That's what I want.
Yeah, it'll automatically change your passwords at most websites will do that for you. So yeah, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on it. And if you have one of the others, there's 1Password and Dashlane, and there's some others that are out there, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, but if you don't have a service yet, look at LastPass.
So if you forget your passwords under LastPass, it will reset them for you, or it will retrieve
Well,
them for you?
LastPass remembers all of your passwords for everywhere.
Okay.
Right, that's what it does.
So you just need to-
If you forget your LastPass password,
You're screwed.
not
Right.
completely, not completely. They
But
do
if
have a reset
you,
mechanism.
right, but if you needed to reset it for something else, they can reset it for you,
Well, they would never forget it for something else, right?
but they will give it to you if you ask for it.
You can get it, yes, you can
Okay.
absolutely see your
Because
password.
sometimes you
Yes.
can't do that. You can
Yes.
have to reset. You
Yes.
can't retrieve.
Right.
So that blood sample, making sure you're either
All right, so encryption, basically scrambling the information. on a file or an entire computer. You want full disk encryption with a long, strong password. When I turn my computer on, before it comes up to Windows, it just says what what password it is, and it's a long password, and I have to enter it. And it's not convenient, but it means that if all of a sudden that laptop was gone, I wouldn't have to worry about the information in it falling into the wrong hands as long as it was powered down, right? That is not the password to log into Windows or to iOS. That is not secure. I'm talking about something that is on the hardware level on the hard drive. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about that, but just know that those are insecure. You have to set it up on the hardware level. And then backup. Backup needs to be automatic and off-site. Right? The golden rule for backup is 3-2-1. 3 copies of your data, 2 different media, and one of them has to be off-site. Right? So if I had 3 copies of my data and I had, computer hard drive and then 2 external hard drives, so that's not 2 different media, right? It's all on the hard drive. So the easy solution is have 1 copy that's there in your office or whatever that you back up to on a regular basis, and then get one of the services like Backblaze or Carbonite that backs up automatically to the cloud. And then you're set, and then you don't have to worry about it. Virtual private network, VPN, you might have heard that. Kind of a buzzword lately. There's a lot of VPNs that are advertising on a lot of podcasts these days. The way it works is it takes the traffic from your computer and it encrypts it into a tunnel to an endpoint, and then that's where you emerge on the internet. And the reason that's important, take this hotel for example. You log on to the free Wi-Fi here at the hotel. Anybody else that's logged on to the free Wi-Fi can intercept the packets from your computer, right? And watch what you were doing on the internet. Now, a lot of websites have fixed that by going to the HTTPS, the secure thing, right? Some of them haven't. So I would still recommend strongly, if you ever connect to free Wi-Fi anywhere, to make sure that you have a VPN service that you have set up on your computer or your phone, right? It's worth it for security. Now, there are some other tangential benefits to using a VPN, right? If you want to watch your favorite ball game and it's blacked out in your region or whatever, you can turn your VPN on and appear to be coming from somewhere else in the country. And like, there are reasons for VPN other than just the security. All I'm recommending it for is the security. 2-factor authentication. Google had big news here recently. They came out with a press release that says in the last 2 years, they have not had a single successful phishing attack on any of Google's employees. Google's a big company. And the reason that nobody's been successful is because Google has required 2-factor authentication for every employee. And what that means is, when you try and log in with your username and password, it says, great, that's right, now what's the code? And they have a little token that they plug in to their computer and they hit a button, and that token sends the code. And that code changes all the time. And so that's only that one device that's given to that one person has the ability to generate that code. It's called 2-factor authentication. The factors are something you know, something you have, or something you are the factors. You need at least 2 of them to be secure, right? Something you have is a fingerprint, right? Or an iris scan or whatever, like biometrics is one thing that you have. It's not all that common, but what is common is the code, something you have, right? And so anytime I want to log into a service like LastPass, because I have 2-factor turned on LastPass, I have an app on my phone called Authy, and I have 9 services here at the bottom. And if I want to log into Facebook right now, I have to have my username and password, and then it says, okay, what's the code from your Authenticator app on my phone? And so this changes every 30 seconds. And so the only way, even if somebody had my username and password to log into Facebook, the only way they could log in is if they also had my phone. So that's the second factor. That's 2-factor authentication. There are sites that will send you a text message, like your bank might send you a text message to log in. It's better than nothing. It's not really secure. Reddit came out yesterday or the day before, maybe 3 days ago. Time goes by. And said that they got hacked. And somebody got into their networks because they used cell phone, send you a text message thing, and those things can be hacked, can be cloned, right? You can clone a SIM card, and then somebody else was getting your codes, and that's how they logged in and broke it. So it's important to have an authenticator app on your phone, or one of the dongles like Google has. That's the second factor. and then updates, right? It's always frustrating when we turn on our computer and it says, hey, you've got all these updates. Windows 10 has gotten really, really bad about doing it even if you don't tell it to. It's important to do it, whether it's Windows or your Mac or your website. WordPress has a ton of plugins that need updated all the time, but it's important. It's important because they patch the security vulnerabilities and let the bad guys in.
Now, the Google thing, each employee has a separate, unique
That's right.
dongle that's coded directly to them, so you can't just pick that one up and use it on anybody.
Yes. Yeah. Each person has a unique, and they conveniently, the day after they released this press release that says we haven't had a successful phishing attack in the last 2 years, they started selling the dongles, and so now you can buy those dongles from Google to work for you. And they are competing against the industry standard is a company called YubiKey that produces these devices, and that's what Google was using before they started to sell their own. So either one is going to be great. I don't even use it, but I should. So, we talked about some of the threats, we talked about some of the mitigations, and here's the matrix that shows us what the threats are and which one of these mitigations will help us. And it kind of helps me think about what solutions work to each problem, right? You're phishing and you're spear phishing. If you've got good passwords, another benefit of LastPass that we didn't talk about is on the phishing attacks where they take you to a website that looks like a normal website that you're used to going to but isn't. The password manager, LastPass, will see that and it will not automatically log you in, right? So take your bank, for example. You're used to going to your bank and LastPass automatically logs you into your bank. Well, if you end up on your bank's website and it's not logging you in, that catches it, right? And you think, well, why isn't this logging in? And it gives you a reason to pay it more attention, and then you can realize that you're actually not on your bank's website, right? So that's why a password solution helps with the phishing and the spear phishing. And then, of course, the brute force attack, right? LastPass or a password manager, whatever password manager you choose, has the ability to manage really long and unique passwords for each site. So that helps against the brute force attack. Theft, right? If all of a sudden the Callie's laptop was gone, she'd have two concerns, right? She'd have to worry about, did the data fall into the wrong hands, right? All the association information that she might have on there. Don't want the bad guys getting that. And then the other thing she'd have to worry about is, what about all my work, all my files that were on there, how do I get those back? Right? So if her laptop's encrypted, we don't have to worry about it falling into the wrong hands. If she's got a backup solution on there, then all she has to worry about is the cost of the hardware, which sucks, but you can still sleep at night, right? So that's why we want encryption and backup. And two-factor authentication is good as well, right? Because if her laptop was taken and it was still on and somebody tries to log into her Facebook, and even if she has LastPass on there, maybe that was still running and it would try to automatically log her in, you still need that second factor authentication, right? Which she's got on her phone, as an example. VPN is good to malware and exploits, right? If you're browsing a unsecured Wi-Fi and somebody's trying to hack into your computer and you're using a VPN, they're gonna have a lot harder time. We talked about two-factor authentication and then updates, so anyway. Those are, I'm not going to talk too much about this. How many use Google Photos? Are you guys familiar with what Google Photos, the service that offers? It's great on your phone, right? It's come with every Android phone in the last couple of years. But where I find that it has extreme value for auctioneers is, I assume that there's probably a computer somewhere in your life, maybe it's your office or your home or wherever, however you have your business structured, you've got a computer that has all the photos from all your auctions, right? And Google Photos has a drive, backup, and sync, I think is the name of the tool. It's free to download, and you can synchronize all of the photos on your computer and have it automatically upload all of those to a brand account for your company at Google Photos, and it does it for free. And it does it all the time in the background. So that is an easy, no-brainer solution to back up all of your photos and videos that you take of the auctions that you do. And you just turn that on. And so I would encourage you to take a look at the Google Photos brand account. I'm going to skip the rest of that. Any questions on any of this? I know it was a lot to burn through, but didn't have a whole ton of time to do it. Yes, Tony?
I used to believe and tell people that using the carbon copy when you're sending an email and putting 72 email addresses in the headers of emails help contribute to spam because of infected computers grabbing that information. It's better to use blind carbon copy. Is that still correct?
If you are sending bulk mail as from an advertising perspective,
Well, whether it's business or personal, whatever, if there's 20 or 30 or whatever, group emails or whatever.
yes, I don't think it hurts. I don't think it helps spam a lot. I think that at some point you run the risk of exposing personal information that some of the members on the list may not want to expose to other members on the list. Right? So unless it's a core group of friends or maybe 5 or 6 people in your business or the clients that might need to know it, I would encourage using the BCC field past that. Sometimes it's important to include the actual email address, like if you're sending a business email to a client and wanting to include a couple of members in your organization, it might be important that client have email addresses of the people they might be dealing with from your business, right? But if it's just a forward to a bunch of people that need to be made aware of something, at some point it's probably better to use the BCC field and not include that there. I don't think it's such a concern for spam anymore. I think that we just need to we need to make the assumption that our email address should be public, and we need to have a spam system. But I don't know about you, but ever since Gmail came out, I really haven't had a spam problem. Right? So there are most of the big services will do a good job filtering spam, in my experience. And so I've just not been worried about email addresses being exposed. Mine anyway, I have a bunch of them and they're all public and easy to find. So that's the solution I've taken. Other questions? Very good. Comments about any of the stuff?
What happens when they figure out how to hack the cloud?
Well, every day we hear stories about companies that are doing the notification dance. I mean, Reddit, just the other day, Reddit's probably one of the biggest social networks in the world. You know, after Facebook and Twitter, Reddit's got a ton of users, and they had to come out and say, hey, somebody got in us. Right? So it depends on how you define cloud. Right? And pretty much any internet site these days, it's rare to find a website that runs on only one server, and so I've always defined the cloud as any site or service that encompasses multiple computers. So it happens all the time. Unfortunately, with increasing irregularity, it's
Is there any way to catch these hackers and scammers? It appears to me that what they're doing is fraud and felonious. Is there any way to catch them?
sometimes.
Can we put 220 volts through their computer or something?
Sometimes, forensics and law enforcement can catch them, but as ubiquitous as VPNs are, I mean, you can use a VPN. I'm recommending everybody use a VPN for good, but they can also be bad, right? We've heard about all sorts of examples where people are trying to hack and using VPNs to cover their tracks, and you daisy chain 3 or 4 VPNs, and those VPN companies make their business model to be completely anonymous and guarantee that to their users, such that they don't keep logs or anything. And so even when law enforcement comes in and says, hey, we need your records, and the VPN service can legitimately say we don't keep records, well, that's the end of the track for law enforcement. So it's hard. It's really hard. So I wish there was a good answer. Any other questions?
These are hard to track.
And they don't crash.
Yeah, right.
They never crash. Folks, thank you so much for inviting me to come.
Thank you.
I am high hopes that I can make it down to convention here this next winter. Look forward to hopefully seeing everybody again then, if not before.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Only thing else I want to say on that, and then if Tony wants to say something too, if you have any suggestions of something that you would like to see at winter conference or learn about or something like that, please let us know. I mean, we're trying everybody, and that's hard because everybody does a little bit different style of their business, and some are equipment, some are real estate, some are